Since childhood, Lena had learned to keep quiet about everything she felt. She was the kind of girl who apologized even when she hadn't done anything wrong, who smiled so others would not worry, and who carried her fears like invisible stones in her pockets. People described her as calm, sweet, and easy to be around. But deep inside, where no one ever looked, she carried a storm that never rested, a storm she didn't understand and that no one had ever taught her how to survive. She first felt it at age 7, when she sat alone in her room listening to her parents argue in the kitchen. She hugged her knees to her chest and prayed for silence. Every shout, every slammed door, sent a wave of cold panic through her small body. She didn't know how to make it stop, so she made herself small instead, invisible, quiet, believing that if she stayed quiet, she would stay safe. That was the first seed of the storm. As she grew, the storm grew with her. Not loud, not wild, not the kind that destroys everything on the outside, no. Lena's storm lived inside her chest. It twisted her breath, tightened her throat, and filled her with emotions she never learned to name. She carried this storm into school, friendships, and later, into adulthood. Whenever someone raised their voice, even slightly, the storm trembled. When someone disappointed her, the storm churned. When she felt lonely, the storm whispered dark things. And when she felt overwhelmed, the storm roared. But no one ever noticed. To the world, she was gentle, patient, understanding. No one knew how hard she fought just to appear normal. One evening, after a long day of pretending everything was fine, Lena walked to the edge of the old field near her house. The sky was covered in heavy clouds, and the wind pushed against her clothes as if urging her to look inward. She felt the familiar pressure rising within her, an invisible weight pressing against her ribs, making each breath shallow and tight. The storm was coming again. She whispered to herself, "Why do I feel like this?" But the wind answered with silence. Her whole life, she had been taught to hide her emotions, to be strong, to not burden others, to be grateful, to be mature, to be polite, to not complain. No one had ever taught her what to do with fear, with confusion, with sadness, with anger, with exhaustion. No one had shown her how to let her heart speak without shame. She sat on a fallen tree and closed her eyes. The storm inside her was no longer a whisper. It swelled, rising like a wave ready to break. She pressed her hand to her chest, trying to steady her breath. But something inside snapped, a quiet, terrible snap like a rope breaking after years of tension. Suddenly, memories struck her all at once. Moments she had pushed away, words she had swallowed, tears she never cried, loneliness she never admitted, and fears she never understood. They hit her like thunder. She opened her eyes, but the world felt distorted. The trees seemed darker, the wind colder, her heart beat louder. She felt as if the storm inside her was slipping out of control, slipping through her fingers no matter how tightly she tried to hold herself together. That's when she saw her, a woman made of swirling light and shadow standing a few feet away, watching her gently. She didn't look threatening. She looked ancient, wise, and sad. Lena blinked, certain she was imagining it. "Who are you?" Lena whispered. The figure stepped closer, her voice soft like distant rain. "I am the storm you carry." Lena shook her head. "No, the storm is something wrong with me. Something broken." The woman's expression softened. "No, I am everything you never learned to feel. Everything you never learned to say, everything you held inside, because no one ever taught you how to let it out." Lena felt her chest tighten even more. "But why does it hurt so much?" The storm woman walked closer until she stood right in front of her. "Because you buried too much for too long. Emotions are not meant to be trapped. Every tear you swallowed became a drop inside me. Every fear you hid became a wind. Every memory you avoided became a cloud. And every time you pretended you were fine, I grew." Lena's voice cracked. "I don't know how to handle you. That's because you were taught to survive, not to feel." The words pierced her like lightning. She realized how true they were. She had learned how to stay quiet so she wouldn't make trouble. She had learned how to smile when she felt like breaking. She had learned how to nod when she wanted to scream. She had learned how to comfort others while abandoning herself. But she had never learned how to be human with her own heart. Tears finally reached her eyes, not the kind filled with anger or shame, but the kind that come from seeing yourself clearly for the first time. "What do I do now?" she whispered. The storm woman extended her hand. "Feel. For once in your life, allow yourself to feel without guilt." Lena hesitated. She had built her whole identity around being strong, calm, okay, easy, good. Feeling was dangerous. Feeling made her vulnerable. Feeling made her imperfect, but something in the storm woman's voice felt safe. It felt like permission she had needed her entire life. So she placed her hand in the storm's hand. Immediately, the wind around them softened, the sky brightened slightly. The storm inside her chest started to loosen, like knots slowly untying. Lena didn't collapse or explode. She simply truly breathed for the first time in years. The storm woman spoke gently. "You survived by holding everything inside. But survival is not living. You deserve more than endurance. You deserve understanding." Lena cried quietly at first, then fully, openly, freely. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't falling apart. It was release. Every tear softened the storm. Every breath steadied her. Every emotion she allowed brought her back to herself. When the crying stopped, she looked at the storm woman, who was fading like morning mist. "Are you leaving me?" Lena asked. The woman smiled. "No, I will always be part of you. But if you face what you feel, I will no longer need to rage." Lena nodded slowly. "I'm scared." "Courage is not the absence of fear," the storm replied. "It is meeting fear with honesty." The figure dissolved into light and drifted into Lena's chest. Not heavy, not painful, quiet, warm, familiar, a part of her she could finally hold without fear. Lena stood up. The world no longer felt distorted. The field looked alive again, the air lighter, her breath deeper. She wasn't healed completely. She wasn't suddenly strong. But she was present, aware. Beginning. She finally understood the truth. The storm inside her was not her enemy. It was her voice, the voice she had ignored her whole life. The voice that now, at last, she was ready to listen to. And that was enough. It was the first real step toward peace.